Welcome to Empowering the Working Mom podcast, the place where working moms find inspiration, support, and practical advice to thrive in their professional and personal lives while aligning it all with God. I'm your host, Latika, a fellow working mom on a mission to empower you to embrace your God-given strength and resilience of balancing work and life while leading you to align it all with God. Twice monthly, we'll delve into topics that matter to you, from time management, advancing your career, mental health, your relationship with God, and so much more. Get ready for insightful interviews with inspiring working moms, experts, and thought leaders who'll share their wisdom, their experiences, their prayers, and their Tabitha moments. Because together, we can break down barriers, defy stereotypes, and rewrite the narrative of being a working mom. So get ready for your empowering moment. Welcome to the Empowering Working Mom podcast. Hey, working mom. I hope you are doing well. Welcome to this episode of Empowering the Working Mom with your host, me, Latika Vines. Please excuse my voice. I am battling a cold. However, I know that I need to share this with as many of you right now in this season. But first, before we get into today's episode, I want to encourage you, if there is a working mom that you know of who needs some encouragement today, please forward this episode to them. Forward this episode, share with as many people as you know. Right now, we need a word of encouragement, and this is for you all, including myself. And don't forget to check out the show notes because we have so many other things going on, and the show notes gives all the links and all of the descriptions of all the things that are happening within the community. And I also want to share that on Saturday, which is Saturday, February 8th, we'll be hosting our monthly prayer session. So if you or someone you know has a prayer request, please make sure you click on the link in the show notes to submit your prayer request so that we can pray during our monthly prayer session. And if you want to join us, please make sure that you click the link in the show notes so that you can get the link so that you can join us. I definitely feel like now is the most appropriate time for all of us to come in prayer. But we know that when 2 or 3 are gathered in the name of Jesus Christ, He is listening, He is in the middle of it, and He answers. So I definitely encourage you to submit your prayer requests and the requests of others and join us if you can. Saturday, February 8th at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Check the show notes for the link. So, ladies, and let's be real. There is a lot that's been going on in this world. A lot. Honestly, there are no words to explain what has been happening in this nation of these United States of America. But I want to remind you today that you are not alone. I know right now it does feel like you are alone in this journey of trying to figure life out right now. And if you're like me, life kind of feels like it's been turned upside down. Your motherhood, your career, your home now, schedules, but most importantly, your faith. And today I want to talk to you about something that speaks to the heart of all of us, and that's standing firm in your faith, resting in the confidence that God will take care of you. Now, I know you've been feeling overwhelmed with what is happening in the news, what you hear in the news, what you hear from your neighbors, what you hear from the carpool line, and also what you are experiencing on your job. Many of you have been let go of your jobs. Many of you have been told to come back to work, either in a remote position or telework status. You've been told to come back to work full time, 5 days a week. Many of you have your husbands that now have to come back into the office. And so the schedule that you had of the pickup and drop off between you and your husband now has to change. And you feel like you are stretched too thin and you're worried about how to balance it all. Well, if that's you, then this episode is just for you. So grab your coffee, grab your tea, take a deep breath, and let's encourage one another. Let's encourage one another. Now, I want to first say that being a working mom is no easy task. Between your work, your family responsibilities, the school drop-offs and the extracurricular activities with the kids, your meal planning, your grocery store, your community service, your everything in between. It feels like there's not enough time or energy or even resources, even you, to go around to do all of these things. And if you're anything like me, you've had these moments of anxiety asking yourself, how am I going to do all of this? How am I going to be able to still sustain what I've set up for my family? Or have I done enough? And with all the things that are happening in our nation right now, what if this route that I take doesn't work out? Or what if this other route that I take or don't take, what if that doesn't work out? But I want you to remember this one thing, that God never intended for you to carry this weight alone. He tells us in His Word that He wants us to give Him our burdens. Give Him our burdens because His yoke is light and is easy. And it truly is. We as working moms, we're planners and I've been told with my type A personality that I plan way too much. Um, and for me, it really gives me sanity by planning. Honestly, planning budget, making sure that there's a schedule, what's happening every day, making sure that things are done around the house on certain days. I definitely plan. And that is a good thing and it's a good quality. And I want you to know that God calls us to be of sound mind. He tells us to be wise and He tells us to be diligent, right? And we know that Proverbs 31, which we hear a lot about the woman who is hardworking and she's very, very resourceful. And she puts all of her trust in the Lord's provision. One thing that I want to share with you all, which I have been sharing for the last 8 years, is that if you are working a full-time job, and I know your time is limited. I know. However, you are working a full-time job, I strongly encourage you to have something else on the side. Have something else on the side. Yes, I get it. Time is precious. Time is precious, and we all do not have time to do extra things. However, work with your head and not with your hands. Having a second job, that could be a side hustle, that could be a book that you have written, and now you've used that book to share your thought leadership on a particular topic, and you're going to share it in speaking events and webinars and podcasts and these things. That's where you're getting paid using your head and not your hands. We're using our time wisely and diligently, but having something where you can get income and you can stack it up for your family, you and your husband work it out, you are stacking up for your family because we don't know. We don't know the future state of this world. We don't. We don't. We do not know the future state of this world. And I know that we are reliant on God. And being reliant on God, He is asking us to be prepared, to be wise and be diligent. So, in that, we have to be prepared for what is to come. And right now, I strongly encourage you to have something, a second something. Again, a book, a speaking, something where you can use your time wisely. Again, use your head and not your hands. That will allow you to still spend time with your husband, still spend time with your family, still be present and focus in your 9 to 5, but having something that you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, if you're passionate about it, you're going to love doing it. Then things will be a little bit easy when the nation starts to go awry. Now, that is my 2 cents. That is my 2 cents. And that is something that I've shared with so many people in the last 8 years. But I want you to look at what you see around you in this nation. There are so many people who are struggling right now because one day they had a job and the next day they didn't. And now they're fearful. And maybe that's you, fearful because you don't know what's next. We don't know what's next. But when you are working, and again, this is you have to get your wisdom from God, for God to discern to you what it is that he wants you to do. But when you have that wisdom from God and he tells you what to do it. Do it. Absolutely. And maybe this is the time. If none of the things that are happening in this nation are affecting you, look at what is around you and truly look to see, what can I be doing to make sure that I can save money so that in the event of an emergency, job loss, or anything else, I have savings that will allow me to be prepared. Again, the word tells us to be wise and diligent. So if we are to be wise and diligent, you have to go to God and ask him what it is that he wants you to do. Okay. Okay. So now that I'm off my soapbox, I want to again remind you the second thing to remember is that faith and wisdom go hand in hand. God never told us to just sit back and do nothing, right? He tells us to work with wisdom while we trust him to be our ultimate provider. Philippians chapter 4, verse 19 tells us, and God will supply my every need of yours according to his riches and glory in Jesus Christ. So he's faithful. And let's not forget that he is not a man, so he should not and cannot lie. He says, he promises to us that he will provide for us. He'll provide for us. So while so many people are worried, scared, they're fearful, you remember and you encourage them that God is faithful. He is faithful and he will take care of you. Again, that includes working with wisdom. Faith without works is dead. He's going to supply your every need. He will. He will supply your every need. And with that, that encourages you or that empowers you. He's given you authority to work with his wisdom. His wisdom. That means you're trusting him as your provider. And that means making smart decisions as far as finances, making smart decisions with, your time. Work with wisdom. The third thing I want to encourage you to remember that rest is an act of faith. So, this season we have been talking about rest. And when we rest, whether that's setting aside time with God, prioritizing sleep, or just staying away from constantly doing stuff, when we rest, we are declaring, we are saying that we trust God to sustain us, right? So Psalms chapter 127, verse 2 says, "It is in vain that you rise up early and go late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sheep." So God knows our needs. He knows our needs and he sees what we're doing. However, he's asking us to trust him. Trust him. So at night, honestly, when you are worried, when you are fearful, when the anxiety creeps in about what is happening, or you get an email and there's another thing that's come down, go to sleep knowing that God will handle it. Let me tell you something that I say all the time. I say to my children, I say all the time, God does not play about his children. He does not. And you, my dear, you are his daughter. You are his daughter. And to the working dads listening, you are his son. So if you are his child, if you are God's child, you have to rest in him and you have to trust that he is going to take care of you. There's no need for you to be getting up early, anxious about what's next or anticipating what's next, making assumptions about what's next. And then you're going to bed late because your mind is racing about all the things that could be happening or all the things that you see around you. That's what Psalm chapter 127, verse 2 is telling us. We don't need to be doing that. We need to rest in God. Rest in God. We have to rest in God. We have to. And so I want to challenge you to do three things. I want you to release the fear that you've been experiencing. So remember that God is your provider and he's going to make sure you have every single thing you need. Okay? Everything that you need. The second thing is to take a step of faith. Trust that he will make a way. Take a step of faith. And then three, rest in his promises. Remember that you don't have to do all of this alone. You don't have to do everything alone. So as you're doing that, releasing the fear, taking a step of faith, and resting in his promises, here are some things that you can do that will allow you to trust in him. So if your schedule has changed now and you have to go back to work 5 days a week, your commute now, maybe you had a remote position and now you are having to go into the office and that commute is crazy. What I encourage you to do is to, if you haven't already, build a community. Now, your community may not look like my community, and my community may not look like yours. Last year, when my husband went for an executive program, he was gone for 30 days. Now, 30 days is a long time with 4 kids by yourself and you're commuting back and forth to work, picking up kids from school. One child doesn't have public transportation because they go to a private school and the like. So, what I had to do was I had to say, God, I need you to provide. My husband needed to go to this training that was away. He was not going to be able to be home. And I needed to make sure that I was in work. I had to go to work a couple days a week. I was blessed to be able to telework. The other days of the week, I need help in picking up 3 of the younger kids and then picking up the older one. I need help, God. And then, God, I need your guidance in figuring out how to make sure that we stay healthy and eating a breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. God, I need your help in making sure that I have the patience of Job, carry out what needs to be done. And God, I also need you to give me wisdom with time and doing the things around the house that my husband normally would. God, I also need you to really be with my kids and have them not act up while my husband is gone. I really had to go into prayer and I had to surrender that to God. And that's what I did. And you know what God did? He supplied my every need. So he gave me names of individuals that I could go to and say, hey, can you help me? I need you to help me pick up kids. I went to one of the teachers that I trusted. This teacher has tutored my kids. This teacher, my daughter, she was our third grade teacher. Like, this teacher I've known for years, and she lived around the corner. I know her aunt. I know her aunt-in-law. I met her uncle. Like, this is a person that I trusted. And I said, okay, God, you gave me her name. I'm going to go to her and I'm going to ask her. God, I'm going to ask her if she could pick up my 3 kids so that I can go pick up the one in a private school that's 20 minutes away. So, God, can you make this work? I approached her after my prayer and seeking guidance in the words to say to her. And she said yes. She said, no problem. And she said, you don't have to worry about gas money. Let me tell you, God supplied my every need. So those 4 weeks that my husband was gone, I had that teacher picking up 3 kids and dropping them off at school. Okay. She was a blessing. She was a blessing. And on the days we sat down with our schedules and she told me, hey, these days I'm not going to be at work, so I'm not going to be able to, take the kids home. I was able to take leave on those days from my job so that I can be there. But God supplied my every need. I say that to you to say that it is time for you to tap into your community. I know that this is going to pass. I know it is. However, it is time for us to step into that resilience that God has given you and lean on his discernment, which is the Holy Spirit, and trust him that he will supply your every need. And that will require for you to go into your community, which are his earthbound angels, okay, to support you during this season. Now, I had someone during that time that my husband was gone, I had someone making gluten-free meals for me, okay? Gluten-free meals for me. I have a gluten allergy and I have a dairy allergy. And I had a private chef. Now, I'm not talking about a glamorous private chef that costs thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. She made bulk meals for me that were gluten-free that I was able to have. So as I'm making the kids food, I had something that was already prepared for me that I didn't have to worry about. So don't forget about yourself in this season. So that was taken care of while I was making sure that my kids had food. But what I'm saying is that I had to tap into people to help me during that time that my husband was gone. I have neighbors who were here that looked out for me. Hey, it's trash day. Let me take your trash out and pull your trash up to the curb so that your trash and your recyclables can be taken care of. I had people praying for me because I asked my local community, hey, I need you guys to pray for me because I need God in this moment. I need him to help me as I am, a single mom, if you will, for 30 days. You have to trust that God will take care of everything. But again, that involves you going to God and saying, God, I need this, 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 this. Just like I said, God, I need someone to help me with dropping off the kids. I need someone to help me with meals. I need someone to help with certain things around the house. My community did not look like everybody else's community. My community looked like a school teacher. My community looked like someone that was working a full-time job. She had several full-time jobs, right? And was doing private chef on the side, doing catering on the side. Hey, I need you to cook for me so that I'm straight. That looked like neighbors down the street, 3, 4 houses down the street, making sure my trash was taken out twice a week. That looked like me talking to my supervisor and saying, hey, my husband is out for 30 days and my schedule is going to have to be adjusted to accommodate everything that I have to do. So I might have to take leave. I might have to use 2 hours here and 2 hours here to make sure that I'm able to pick up and do all the things. And let me, during that time my husband was gone, I had children in winter concerts. I had children in plays. And so I had to say, mother-in-law, come help me, please. Mother-in-law, go to this play while I go to this winter concert. Mother-in-law, go to this rehearsal so I can go to this rehearsal. Right there, I had so many people stepping in and doing things, but I'm going to be honest with you. I had to ask God, God, I know that you supply my every need. God, I know that you are my provisionary. God, your word tells me that you are Jehovah Jireh. So because you are Jehovah Jireh, God, I'm going to you and I'm saying I need X, Y, and Z and A, B, and C. I need you to supply the person that's going to be able to do this. What vessel of yours is going to be able to help me in this area? And I trusted him. I rested in that. And he supplied my every need. So right now, I'm encouraging you to sit down and you figure out with your husband, figure out what is it that you need now in this new season. Things have turned around for you, for all of us. And so what do you need? Do you need to adjust your schedule at work now that you're not able to telework and you can't remote? Now that your commute is longer, what are your hours, your new adjusted hours are going to be? Can you have an alternate work schedule where you work maybe 4 days a week, 10 hours, or one week you're able to work 9 hours for the 5 days, and the next week you're able to work 3 days at 9 hours, and the fourth day on the 8 hours, and then on the fifth day you have that day off? What are you able to do with what you have to be able to balance all that you have on your plate while going to God first? Going to him first and saying, God, this is what I need. God, to make this work. God, I know I have to go back into the work 5 days a week. I don't even know how I'm going to afford it, God. But God, I know you're going to supply my need. So God, I need you to help me figure out how to supply this need of going back and forth to work. God, going to work costs me X amount of dollars. Gas, parking, cost this amount of dollars. God, I need you to supply this. How are you going to supply this, God? What do you want me to do? Where do you want me to say? God, what do you want me to do here? Involve God in that so that he can supply your every need. You cannot rest in God until you give it to him. And so, my sister, my brother, I am encouraging you to give God this. Everything that you are experiencing, everything that you are frustrated about, every level of anxiety, every ounce of fear and in doubt, everything that you're experiencing, give it to God. Give it to God. And I encourage you, if you do not have a church home, if you do not have a local community of believers, I encourage you to join me in prayer every second Saturday of the month at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time, where that is a community of believers and we get together and we pray. Join us every second Saturday, of the month for prayer. And if you need prayer, again, the link in the show notes, you can submit a prayer request and I can pray for you. And if you would like a phone call for us to pray, say that in your prayer request and it will be given. But let me encourage you. You cannot do this alone. You cannot. You cannot do this alone. And I, with every power that God has given me, am encouraging you not to do this alone. God is here and he wants you to release that fear. He wants you to understand that he is your provider. He wants you to say, God, I need you in this moment. So he's requiring you to take a step of faith. And honestly, right now, I believe that this is a faith move for all of us, a faith move to trust God in every aspect of our lives. Because I don't know about you, but every aspect of my life has been touched by what's happening in this nation today. Every aspect. And so he's wanting us to take a step of faith, and that is trusting that he will make a way. He is going to make a way. But the only way he's going to make a way is if you release the fear and tell yourself that he is your Jehovah Jireh. He is a God that will provide for you. And rest in that promise. Rest in that promise that he provides. Rest in the promise that he is never going to lie to you. He is never going to leave you, and he is never going to forsake you. God sees what's happening. God sees what's happening in this nation. God knows what's happening. God knows what's about to happen. But what he is asking, what he is requiring is for you to rest in him. And that's trusting him. Trusting him. Trust him. Remember, you're not alone in this. God sees you and he loves you and he will provide for you. All he's requiring is for you to trust him. And if you are in need of speaking to someone, a mental health specialist, I encourage you to check out your employee assistance program, where you are able to get a discount for therapy sessions, for you to be able to talk to someone. Because sometimes we need someone to talk some things out. Sometimes we need someone to just listen to us. That is not a friend, that's not a relative, that doesn't know us, but can just listen to us. And sometimes say our words back to us to understand that everything is going to be okay. So definitely, if you have an employee assistance program, tap into that. If you know of a therapist, tap into that therapist. Ask that therapist for some time. Again, if you are not in a community, I strongly encourage you to join us for prayer every second Saturday of the month. But I encourage you to find a local community of believers, a local community of believers who are believers of Christ, believe in the gospel that Jesus is God's son, that he came to the earth for us, that he died for our sins to be forgiven, for us to have eternal life. And he rose again, and he is sitting in heaven on the throne next to God. Get yourself into a Bible-based teaching church and build your community of people that can support you during this time. Definitely during this time. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. We don't know what will happen tomorrow. But what I encourage you to do is remember that God is with you. He will make sure that you are okay. But you have to trust him and you have to believe that he is going to supply your every need. Rest in your faith in God and trust in his provision. Trust in him. Trust in him. He will make sure that you are okay. So until next time, I want you to take a deep breath, stand firm in your faith, and embrace the rest that God has for you. You're going to be okay. You will. I promise you, God is going to make sure that you are okay. All he requires is for you to trust in him. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Empowering the Working Mom podcast. As you reflect on the empowering moments, remember that you are not alone in this journey. It takes a whole village to be a working mom. Discover how big your village is by joining fellow working moms in our private Empowering Working Mom online community, where we continue this conversation and support each other every step of the way. Until next time, you got this because God has you.